the Cleveland Browns, my favorite football team. Yes, I've never felt so optimistic about the Cleveland Browns literally my entire life, my existence.
Agree.
So for me, this is a very exciting year. Somebody who's been a season ticker for over a decade and somebody who lives and dies Cleveland Browns. My wife, she finds it very exciting sometimes. But let's break them down, shall we? At quarterback, the Baker Mayfield, backed up by Case Keenum. Running back, Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, Demetric Felton. Wide receiver, Odell Beckham Jr., Jarvis Landry, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Rashard Higgins, Kadero Hodge. At tight end, Austin Hooper, David Njoku, Harrison Bryant, and Steven Carlson. We'll start at the top with probably one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, Baker Mayfield. Quarterback number 17 on the year last year and average on points per game, quarterback 17. But from week 12 on, Baker was QB8, and that includes week 16 versus the Jets, where he scored a whopping 6 points due to COVID hitting every single wide receiver and some of the offensive linemen.
That was a tough game.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, so from that point on, he was better from that week on. Week 12 on, he was better than Justin Herbert, Pat Mahomes, Matt Ryan, Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson, Matt Stafford, and even Jalen Hurts. I know that being said, he played some really easy pass defenses that from week 12 on. So I know that had a factor to do it as well, but he still executed. And he'll need an uptick in passing plays to keep that production up. And what I really like here is, when I'm hearing out of the Cleveland media and offense and everything I'm reading, is that Stefanski wants to take this offense to another level. In his first year here, no offseason, COVID, everything, he wanted to keep it basically simple, run that Gary Kubiak offense and, ground and pound the ball. And like I said, later in the year, as Baker got more comfortable, he opened a playbook and it passed a little bit more. I expected to kind of keep going. They didn't utilize the tight ends as we expected them to last year. Right. Usually it takes the tight ends a second year in a new offense to really start to grasp the offense fully and to become better weapons there. So, Harrison Bryant also looking great so far in camp. David Njoku's looking okay. Austin Hooper's just looking okay, but Harrison Bryant's looking really good.
I think both of those two tight ends that you mentioned, other than Austin Hooper, are just more athletic guys. So I think they're going to stand out a little bit more than a guy like Austin Hooper, that I see as more like a steady Eddie type of guy. He'll get the job done, but he's not as athletically gifted.
Correct.
And things are different in game action, too, for some of these guys. Like, you see some of these guys look great in camp when they're not actually getting hit, really. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, so it's interesting to see, and I'm not necessarily saying those guys in particular, but with all of these players, especially with some of the rookies and stuff like that, camp tells you a little bit, but the actual game action is a lot different. Guys like Najee and Javonte are better with pads on because of how physical they are and things like that.
Definitely this early in camp when you're mostly hugging instead of tackling.
Exactly.
And listen, I realistically view Baker as, I think he'll have some moments where he'll finish in a couple of years, like as right around here, like QB8, QB9. But I do more so look at him just for the way this offense so far of how it's going, where they're going to run the ball 50% of the time with the running backs that they have. Just recently re-signed Nick Chubb to a 3-year extension. He's here for 4 years. Kareem Hunt's here for 2 more years as well. So they're going to utilize that for a Super Bowl run and ground and pound that ball. So I think Baker Mayfield's more of a realistic, because of his upside and how smart he is, which is, again, was my favorite attributes by a quarterback, right? It's why I love Drew Brees so much. It's why Peyton Manning is so good. It's why Tom Brady is so good. When you see a lot of these older quarterbacks have success, a lot of times when their arm strength diminishes, it's because they're so smart and they get the ball out so quickly with the football. So an accurate quarterback is going to equal production. And I do view Baker as more of like quarterback 13, 14, 15, right around there. Some years he'll be quarterback 8, somewhere around there too. So a really good quality quarterback 2 in a super flex league. Somebody you still kind of want because he's only 25 years old. So if you get a young quarterback that has those quarterback 1 finishes with high-end quarterback 2 finishes, that's a really good asset in super flex leagues.
And you'll actually get the longevity, because that is one of the things that I don't know that we always touch on as much, because we talk about the quarterback and how important it is with the longevity, but some of these fly-by-night guys, they're not going to have longevity because they might not be in the league in 3 years. We know he's established with this team. We know that he's the heartbeat of Cleveland. Mm-hmm. Like, he's going to be with this team for a long time. So, when it comes to Jalen Hurts or Baker Mayfield, there's just so much more security in a guy like Baker Mayfield, where Jalen Hurts might have some crazy upside, but we don't know what team he's going to be starting for next season, if he's starting at all.
And unlike in the past, it seems like the Browns finally have the front office figured out and the coaching staff figured out. So there's a little bit of stability there as well, which, in the past past 20 years, you couldn't say that about
No,
them.
not at all.
So it is a little bit different now.
And anytime you have an offensive line as good as the Cleveland Browns have, your quarterback's always going to do a little bit better, because that's where Baker's obviously struggled so far, is when he's been under pressure. At any moment he has struggled. But right now, the Cleveland Browns have arguably the best offensive line in all of football.
PFF agrees with you. They have them ranked as the top offensive line coming into the season, had them finishing as the top last season as well.
Which brings you to not only a good quarterback, what a very good running back can do. So when you have a good offensive line, it can make any average running back look better. When you have a really good offensive line, you have two really good running backs, they're going to make them look like all pros. And the Browns have just that. They have Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. I mentioned Nick Chubb gets extended. Kareem Hunt's on a really team-friendly deal as well for 2 more years. And these are guys, which is a really weird situation that we don't see. We talk about in fantasy all the time, can a team support 2 wide receiver ones? Can they have that? You don't ever talk about a running back situation where, can this team support 2 high-end running backs? Well, the Cleveland Browns have done that. Last year, they had 2 running back ones on the year, running back number 10 overall and running back number 11. And Chubb missed 4 games last year, and he still finished as running back number 11 on the year. Chubb averaged 17.3 fantasy points per game, which was 8th best amongst running backs, with more than 2 games missed. So for him, that's a real nice look for a guy like Nick Chubb. We all know he's a high-end fantasy football running back in the Derrick Henry kind of category, because when it comes to PPR,
exactly.
he's not as involved.
And had you extrapolated his stats out for a full 16 games for Nick Chubb, he would have been RB4 on the season last year. So had he not missed those 4 games and just played at the same consistency that he was the rest of the year, we're looking at running back 4 on the season.
Yeah, and when the 17.3 points per game was actually best amongst running backs that played more than 2 games. Because I always got to say that because Antonio Williams had that 1 game he played in, and he was the number 2 overall points per game. So
Christian McCaffrey.
And obviously Kareem Hunt is the best backup running back in the league, and a valuable asset when Chubb is in, or whether Chubb is out, because he averaged actually a half point more per game when Chubb was actually active and on the field. And when you look at it, weeks 1 through 4, because Chubb got hurt in week 5. Hunt was running back number 7 overall, and Chubb was running back 15 overall in PPR leagues. Weeks 9 through 17, Chubb was running back 6, Hunt was running back 18. And that's where I realistically expect them to align going forward. I look at, Hunt will have some running back 1 games, but mostly a mid-range to high-end running back 2, while Chubb consistently puts out those running back 1 numbers. Both very quality assets on your dynasty team or any fantasy team, and you can literally start both on a week-in, week-out basis.
And I love the way they use those guys too. I mean, it's like Nick Chubb comes in, pounds the heck out of guys, and then they'll give a whole series to Kareem Hunt. He'll come in and do his thing. There'll be more passes thrown in that series than in the last one. It's just a very creative way that they've used these guys, and it's very good for fantasy production. I feel like they can be supported, both those guys, and they've shown it in the past. And it's just an exciting feeling for, I guess, a Browns fan, but also, from just somebody that likes fantasy and like these little nuances, that it's very interesting the way they've used them.
What do you think's the price tag in Dynasty right now for Kareem Hunt? It's so weird because you're buying a backup running back who puts up good numbers. Like, what are you paying for a guy like Kareem Hunt? Are you paying a 2022 first for him?
If it's late, if it's, pick 11, pick 12, probably that's because teams are starved for running backs. Even though we have a slight influx compared to some years, it's still tough to get more than 2 solid backs on your team at any given time. So I think you're going to have to give up a low end first. Maybe you could get away with like 2 high end seconds if you're lucky, but to get a mid range RB2, that's kind of the price tag.
That is the price tag. I feel like that's what you have to give up for him for sure. And he's 26 years old. He's got this year and next year on his contract. So, he'll be hitting it roughly 27, 28 free agency. So as long as he's not getting worn down and it doesn't look like they're going to overuse him the next couple of seasons, you probably should be able to get another year or 2 out of him after that.
On a different team as running back 1.
Yep.
I mean, coming off his back-to-back Super Bowl champion. I mean, that's gonna be a really good resume for Kareem Hunt. So I'm very excited for him and his future. Obviously, a local kid from where we live here as well too. And then going to the receivers, Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry. Obviously, Jarvis Landry last year, the way they run the offense got a downtick in his production. Finished as a very low end wide receiver 3. I think it was around wide receiver 36, which is about as low as you could possibly go. As wide receiver 3, and we'll see again. I'm very intrigued how they're going to utilize the passing game this year. If they're going to take that step forward, I do expect Odell Beckham to be the number one receiver on this team. And Odell Beckham hasn't done anything since 2016. He's been hurt year in, year out. He had a 1,000-yard season a couple of years ago for Cleveland when he first got here, but that was about it. Can we see a scenario where Odell Beckham finishes as a wide receiver 1 in 2021?
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely, within his realm of possibilities, because he certainly has the talent. It's whether or not he's going to be able to stay healthy. He hasn't been able to do that since God knows how long. Yeah, 2016. I couldn't remember the exact date. So I think he can do it. I don't think Jarvis is as big of a hindrance, I think, as he was in the past. I don't think he's going to command as many the volume of targets. I think Jarvis is still going to have impact on the game. I think he's still going to be a low end, wide receiver 3, but he's not going to be commanding 140 targets a year. You know what I mean? So Odell Beckham, I think, is still going to be able to get a nice chunk of change, and he can do a lot with that. It's going to be clearing up the little things that I saw when he was in there, at the beginning of last year, and it was there were timing issues. It seemed like Baker at times was forcing the ball. At least that's how I saw it. So as long as they've cleared that stuff up through a nice full camp this season, and getting this offense rolling, I think he can be a huge weapon.
I'm not sure that he can be a wide receiver 1. It's in the realm of possibility, sure, but I think the biggest hindrance to it is just raw target numbers. So we just talked about the Cincinnati Bengals. The Cincinnati Bengals literally passed the ball, with Joe Burrow being hurt even, 100 more times last year than the Browns did. This is probably going to be a slightly better defense than it was in years past. So I expect them to be, not playing from behind very often. You have that great offensive line. You have 2 good running backs. I don't know that there's going to be a huge uptick in passing, maybe just because it's a more efficient offense. Maybe we see an extra 50 pass attempts. But Jarvis Landry, who led the team in targets last year, only had 101 by himself. Yep. So that's the hard part. You almost have to cross that 120, 125 threshold to even have a shot at it. And I just don't know that even if he gets there, I don't see him going above that.
I think it'll be pretty close. I think he does have a shot at wide receiver 1 if he can get back to form, which again, it's a long shot when you haven't done this long. So it's not guaranteed. If I had to predict where Odell Beckham is going to finish, it's going to be wide receiver 13 to 16 within that range with my prediction. But I'm with Matt. It wouldn't shock anybody if Odell Beckham had a monster year, came out at 1,500 receiving yards and double-digit touchdowns. I think the guy to buy here, the name to mention here, is Donovan Peoples-Jones, former 6th-round pick, rookie last year out of Michigan, who was a former 5-star recruit coming out of high school and just didn't produce at Michigan. Kind of like same thing we were kind of talking about Nico Collins out there in Houston.
Yep.
And right now, if you ask any beat reporter, anybody that stops in Cleveland that covers the Cleveland Browns, who's the MVP of camp? So far, it's Donovan Peoples-Jones. He's had a really good connection with Baker Mayfield, and he's dominating the defensive backs. And you got to remember, the defensive backs he's playing with, when you think of Browns defense, we're talking about guys like Denzel Ward, top 5 pick. Greg Newsome, 1st-round pick. Greedy Williams, 2nd-round pick. So the Browns have really upped their secondary. Bring in John Jones from the Rams. They have Ronnie Harrison. And, of course, Grant Delpit's coming off the Achilles injury. So the secondary is pretty good.
Ronnie
Harrison?
Safety?
Oh, okay. I was thinking Rodney Harrison from the Patriots. I was like, wait, what?
He's retired. And for Donovan Peoples-Jones has been MVP of the camp. So the Browns really feel like they have something here in Donovan Peoples-Jones. So if you want to trade for a receiver where if maybe it doesn't work out with Odell Beckham, or maybe they want to get out without these salaries, and I don't even predict this to be the 2022 season. I think it's going to be more so like the 2023 season. Donovan Peoples-Jones has the opportunity to be the number 1 receiver on this team.
I think that's definitely the plan. I think he is the future at the position here, and I love that the fact that he's lighting up camp. And he flashed last year.
The big catch in the Cincinnati
Bengals,
game,
big time. But if you look at the contracts of Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry, 2 guys that are 29 years old, both of them. Odell's last year is 2023, and Jarvis's last year on his deal is 2022. Both of their deals. Odell Beckham has no guaranteed money next year. They can literally save $15 million by cutting him and have no dead money. And Jarvis I think he counts like $15 million against the cap, but he only has like $1 million worth of dead money. So you can save a ton of money next year as well. If you got rid of one of them or either one of them, you're looking at $15 million to $30 million. And for a team that needs to sign some guys still,
Baker Mayfield being one of them.
Namely Baker Mayfield and Denzel Ward also has an extension coming, correct? He hasn't gotten extended yet.
He'll probably get extended here soon, and Wyatt Teller. But right there, I'm just going to say the cap's going to go up so much here in a year that I don't think it's really going to be outrageous to have over two receivers that make a total of $14 and $16 million. And I actually see them restructuring Jarvis Landry because I think as from a team chemistry wise, I think Jarvis is the one they would want to keep.
I think Jarvis is also, but that clean cut on Odell Beckham, if he doesn't produce this year, if it doesn't work out, if things with him and Baker don't mesh, that's going to be a clean cut. And then they're going to be looking to fill that void of the number one wide receiver. This is my whole point. And Donovan Peoples-Jones, the way he's been producing, he might be a guy that just slides right in. He's the only guy with size on that team that has that kind of explosive ability.
This could definitely be a situation, especially a team that's pretty solid in most of their positions. We could easily see them draft somebody in this next year's class as well.
Yeah, I like Donovan Peoples-Jones as a buy in Dynasty. And of course, we've been saying this for now going on about 6-8 months that Harrison Bryant in a Superflex tight end premium league is an absolute buy, even in that. So I mean, we get him for cheap. Harrison Bryant's a great buy because he does show out in practice. And remember, this guy who we thought was a former wide receiver, essentially going out there playing receiver, he's bulked up 14 pounds, so he can block a little bit more. He's the future at tight end as well. So if you're looking for two players that offer really good upside on this team, it's going to be Donovan Peoples-Jones and Harrison Bryant.